This Game Boy ripoff is awful. If I really wanted to kill myself, I'd just play Fortnite. Hello and welcome to Wiggy Reviews. I'm Wiggy and I review books. Today I am going to be reviewing the final book in a series that I fell in love with back in 2015. It is the Stephen King series, Mr. Mercedes or Hodges Trilogy, whichever person you talk to. And I've been looking forward to finishing this series. Well, looking forward and kind of dreading it because I don't really want it to end. But let's just get right into it. Today I'm going to be reviewing Stephen King's End of Watch. Now before we get into it, like I said, this is the third book in a series, and I have reviewed the first book, Mr. Mercedes, and the second book, Finders Keepers, and I'll put links down below so you can check that out if you want to. This is the final book in the series that features Stephen King's retired detective, Kermit William Hodges, or Bill, and he kind of brings it back around to what made Mr. Mercedes great, and it is this chase between Hodges and his, I'm going to call him his nemesis, Brady Hartsfield, who was the Mercedes killer. And it's great that King has brought it back around, because Finders Keeper kind of went away from that, and it was kind of it was basically a standalone book that just was more of a character development, I think, for Hodges, to just kind of show that he's still improving and still getting back on his feet in a way. We get to see all our favorite characters again, and a lot of new characters. Some good, some some actually a little could have been, I think, utilized even a little more. But enough of me rambling. I'm going to just read the inside jacket so that you get an overview of what this book is about. In room 217 of the Lakes Region Traumatic Brain Injury Clinic, something has awakened. Something evil. Brady Hartsfield, perpetrator of the Mercedes massacre where 8 people were killed and many more were badly injured, has been in the clinic for 5 years in a vegetative state. According to his doctors, anything approaching a complete recovery is unlikely, but behind the drool and stare, Brady is awake, and in possession of deadly new powers that allow him to wreak unimaginable havoc without ever leaving his hospital room. Retired police detective Bill Hodges, the unlikely hero of Mr. Mercedes and Finders Keepers, now runs an investigation agency with his partner Holly Gibney, the woman who delivered the blow to Hartsfield head that put him on the brain injury ward. When Bill and Holly are called to a suicide scene with ties to the Mercedes massacre, they find themselves pulled into their most dangerous case yet, one that will put their lives at risk, as well as those of Bill's heroic young friend Jerome Robinson and his teenage sister Barbara. Brady Hartsfield is back and planning revenge, not just on Hodges and his friends, but on an entire city. Woo! A lot to unpack there. So clearly, Brady is back, and Stephen King has decided, you know what, I gave you two books about two detective stories, two detective mystery thrillers, and now it's time to get back to what I do best and put some supernatural shit in this book. Is it successful? I feel like it is. I know I have read other reviews where they said it kind of came out of nowhere and it was a bit too unbelievable that it happened. But at the same time, it's like, I mean, it's not as supernatural as he usually does it. The cause of Brady's power is actually his doctor giving him illegal drugs to try to find a cure for severe brain trauma. So really, it's not like he just woke up and he had it. It was a side effect to a experimental illegal drug. But I can understand some people who didn't like that, because especially if you are more of a fan of mystery thrillers that are based more in reality, I could understand it. But I mean, a lot of mystery thrillers now are going more towards not so much supernatural, but kind of the more scientific side of supernatural things. Because I would consider this more of a scientific supernatural event that happened, because it was a side effect of a drug. I think the part that makes it unbelievable for a lot of people is how his powers how he uses his powers, and how he uses them is he uses these rip-off Game Boy things called Zappets, and he can there's a game on them called Fish and Hole that kind of has a hypnotic effect on those who play it. And if you're in this hypnotic effect, he can kind of not take over necessarily, but he can project himself and start like kind of doing whispers in your ear, or start planting nuggets of doubt, nuggets of just insecurity inside of a person. And his ultimate plan is to kill as many people as he can by having them commit suicide. And there's an interesting commentary about how technology plays into a mass domino effect, especially in suicides and crime sprees and all that in general. And I always like when King makes technology kind of part of the problem, because he also is like such an avid user of Twitter that it's interesting that he hasn't made a horror book about Twitter. But I find it super intriguing because, you know, there's all these gaming companies and I like that do these small games or mobile games where the point is to suck a person in so that they lose track of time and they just play the game for long periods and then end up, you know, spending all their money on it. And I don't necessarily see a complete tie between that and this, but it just reminded me of that a lot. The other thing I really liked about this book is, again, returning to form of Mr. Mercedes. The battle between Hodges and Brady is a little different than it is in Mr. Mercedes. It's more a little bit one-sided because they aren't actually interacting with each other as much as they were in the first book. But it still feels like there's still an immediate threat throughout between Hodges and Brady. And even when everyone's kind of doubting him and saying, it's not Brady, he's in the hospital. Oh no, what do you mean? It can't possibly be him. There was just, like, Hodges, there's too much coincidence for him, and he fought tooth and nail to prove to everyone, like, no, it's him. And then on top of this threat of Brady, suddenly King has introduced pancreatic cancer. Okay, so now we not only have a murderer that has the ability to make people kill themselves, now we have a time limit on when Hodges can stop him. And it's not even a time limit that Brady has installed, it's a time limit that Holly has installed. Because Holly learned about Hodges' diagnosis, and the doctors basically say, like, you should have been on treatment like yesterday. It's severe, and you have maybe 1-2 years to live. And Holly tells him, like, well, now, I know you're obsessed with Brady, and you think he's doing this, but you need to get help. And being the stubborn detective that we come to know and love, Hodges is like, no, I have to finish this. So Holly gives him an ultimatum, like, you have 2 days. 2 days to solve this, figure it out, whatever you need to do to get some closure, and then you're going to the doctor and you're going to start treatment. Because what is the number one thing to add tension in a thriller? You add time limits. I'm going to enter spoiler territory now, so if you don't want spoilers for this book, skip to this timestamp, right here above my head, right here. Because I'm going to talk about the ending for a little bit just because I need to. Are we good? Are you there? Again, if you're going to read this book, click to that timestamp. Alright. So the ending, I have to talk about the ending because I have to discuss Brady's end. His end of watch, if you will. I thought it was a very karmic way to go. And if you don't know how he went and you're still watching and you want me to ruin it for you, here it is. Jerome runs him over with a goddamn snowplow. Like, what? And I know you're like, how did it escalate to that? Well, he's hiding out in a cabin and Hodges and Holly come and he gets the jump on them, but Jerome gets the jump on him and runs him over with a snowplow. And I mean, it was so fitting in a way. Because, I mean, Mr. Mercedes started with Brady running people over in a big Mercedes Benz, and it was just, it was fitting in a way that he got run over by a snowplow. But the even crazier thing was, it didn't kill him. He was still alive. He basically got cut in half by the snowplow, but he survived. And ultimately, he ends up taking his own life. So, in a way, he kind of is done in by his own deeds, in a way. It was kind of so surprising, but also so, like, Satisfying is the word I'm looking for. And of course, then King has to even take it another step by showing that Hodges does not survive his treatment for the pancreatic cancer, and he does succumb and dies. In the end, it's Jerome and Holly at Hodges' gravesite, and it's sad because it's very much kind of King going like, I'm done. This series is done. Thank you for riding with me, but it's time to put this to bed. It's time for Hodges' end of watch. And there was, I think, a typo at the end. I'm not sure, because the book took place in 2016. Like, it started January 2016 was the big thing in the beginning here. I'll even show you. Let me show you. There is it. See? January 2016. But here at the very end, and I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, it says August 30th, 2015. Like, is that a typo? Or is that just when King finished the book? I'm unclear in a way, just because of where it's included in the story. I don't know. Maybe it's just a typo. Maybe it is just when King ended the book. I don't know. It was confusing to me. A nitpicky thing, I know. But overall, I loved this to be the ending of the book. It had to end. Hodges' story had to end with Brady. It started with Brady. It had to end with Brady. And though I can see why some people believed it was a bit of a stretch that Brady's mental abilities allowed him to get to people when he's locked in a room, I can understand why they find that crazy, but it's like, is it any crazier than any of the other stuff that King has done? I mean, I don't know. If you're going in looking for a pure detective thriller with no supernatural things, then yeah, this isn't gonna be the book for you. But if you can overlook that, and if you just really like the thriller aspect of mystery and don't mind the supernatural themes and maybe some of the overreaching that King does to make things happen, then I highly recommend this book. I recommend reading the whole series, really. And even though the second book doesn't really have anything to do with this book, except it does kind of set up this book, the last chapter, I still recommend reading the entire series. Don't just skip from Mr. Mercedes to this book. I think you need to see the full development, full evolution of Hodges, and Finders Keepers is more of just him kind of accepting Holly as his partner, and just kind of, you really get to see him picking his life back up after the events of the Mr. Mercedes book. Ultimately, I give this book a 4 out of 5. 1 out of 5 out of 5. You're loving it so much. There were parts that dragged a little bit for me, which is odd because most of the book was just like I wanted to keep reading, but there were a couple bits where it dragged a little bit, and it was, of course, it was more towards the beginning than anything. And this is going to be a personal pet peeve of mine, and I know a lot of people, it's kind of one of their favorite things about Holly, and it's been part of her character for all 3 books, but some of those little factoids and nuggets of trivia that she said, some of them just kind of became a bit, I want to say cliched, but not really cliched. The information was cliched, and it's information that is just repeated so often nowadays, and even him including the 90% brain thing, like that, I was like, oh, come on, King, you're better than that. You know that's not true. So that's why I couldn't just give it a full 5, because there were parts that dragged, and what was once redeeming about Holly kind of becoming a bit redundant, because I feel like it kind of stepped her back as a character. Like, she had made so many steps forward throughout the series that I feel like her just, it felt like just like, oh, this is a quirk that everybody liked, I'm gonna keep it. Whatever. You do, if you like it, more power to you. So yes, Stephen King's End of Watch, 4 out of 5. Thank you for watching this review. If you liked it, please be sure to leave a comment and like this video. And if you aren't subscribed, why not? I mean, I'm so entertaining. But really though, thank you all so much for watching, and Don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment, do whatever you want, leave a dislike if you want. At least that means you clicked on the video, so it's still a win for me. And next week is going to be a quickie review from me, and it's going to be a fantasy series that has become one of my all-time favorite fantasy series. And it's a new series. Well, not new. It's a modern series that is still releasing books. Actually, I think the final book actually just released this month. I have no idea. Or last month. That's it for me. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll read you later. Bye!